Have you ever been reading from the Bible and noticed a sort of subheading below the chapter title with all this extra information? Well, this information was inserted there by the translators as a short summary and chapter breakdown for the verses to follow. Oftentimes included in here are verse breakdowns and key themes or ideas that the chapter are going to talk about. When we come to the book of Psalms, however, oftentimes the Psalms will have two sets of subheadings. Take Psalm 143 for an example. Below the psalm title, we read that David prayeth for favor in judgment. Well, how do the translators know that David wrote this psalm? Well, if we looked and did an in-depth study of the psalm, sort of like a chapter study, we might come up with some amazing connections to the life of David in this psalm. But actually the answer is even a little bit more simple than that. Right below the subheading summary from the translators are the words, "A Psalm of David." Now, while the sentence, "David prayeth for favor in judgment," is a summary and an insertion by the translators, the words, "A Psalm of David," are actually part of the original Hebrew text. Rather than being another insertion by a studious translator, these words are actually part of the divine and inspired Word of God left on record for us. Many of the Psalms include these extra details, like who the author was, like in Psalm 143, or perhaps what type of composition the psalm is, who the psalm was to be sung by, or when it was to be sung. In fact, some of the Psalms include details about the historical background to the psalm. Psalm 142, for example, tells us that this was a prayer when David was in the cave. Psalm 3 is a psalm when David fled from Absalom, his son. And Psalm 34 gives us even more detail, telling us that this was a psalm of David when he changed his behavior before Abimelech, the Philistine leader, and he drove him away and departed. All throughout the Psalms, we're given these titles and descriptions that can help us see the many themes and ideas that come out of the Psalms in a new light, perhaps giving us an idea about when they were written or the circumstances under which they were written. Next time you're reading from the Psalms, take the time to check and see if your psalm has an inspired subheading. It just might help you understand that psalm a little bit more.